Normally whenever I talk about sustainability rises, it clears that room pretty quickly, so I'm quite impressed that actually more people come in, so great to see you all. So yeah, good afternoon everyone. So thank you for attending this talk today about digital sustainability. So as I said, I'm Robbie, I'm the MD of RJM Digital. We're a locally founded tech company, and we help build web solutions for small to medium companies. We're really proud of the fact that we're a certified partner of the Eco-Friendly Web Alliance. So it's a UK founded organisation, and their role is to build awareness of around this subject. So what they do is they bring the best minds together, plus ourselves, to conduct research that helps companies understand the carbon footprint of tech usage, and in particular of businesses' websites and individuals' websites as well. So I've always been involved in technology in some form, so whether it's a small company that sold technology that shut down desktops when they weren't being used, to selling large data infrastructure projects to banks. And it wasn't really until I started RJM Digital when I sort of gained awareness around the impact, the carbon impact that the tech industry has. And in particular what we do when we build websites, it's got a huge impact in terms of the amount of energy consumed and obviously CO2 emissions. So today the talk is all about how the tech industry is doing its bit to reduce the impact on climate change and of course carbon emissions. I'm sure you're the same, but when I first heard about this for the first time, you probably had the same reaction. Does the internet really have a carbon footprint? Like, is it actually really a thing? Well, according to all the research, it does, and it's actually quite a profound impact. So these figures are estimates, okay? It's difficult to calculate the exact figures for anything of this nature, but the current estimated footprint as of 2023 is about 3.7% of the total gas emissions that are produced by humans as of today. Now, COVID, thank God that's all over now, but has been a huge accelerator into digitising pretty much everything in our lives. So with the rise of Zoom calls taking place, almost every business realising they need some form of digital presence, whether it's on social media, on websites, or whatever it may be. And social media is being consumed by even more 16 to 30-year-olds, and it's becoming a big factor of our everyday lives. So, and even the likes of WhatsApp, and I'm sure we're all parts of many relevant WhatsApp groups about a stag party or a family meetup or whatever it may be, is becoming the de facto route of our communication. And so therefore, all of that put together, the overall impact that's predicted to be in terms of carbon gas emissions is expected to rise to almost 5.5%. And that's a really conservative estimate as well. So, if you compare this to one of the most criticised industries of emitters of pollution, the aviation industry, again, COVID-19 had a big impact on this. Their figure is 2.5%. Now, we can probably all completely understand why aviation is heavily criticised in this space, because the percentage of the global population that has access to flights, especially those people that fly on a regular basis, compared to access to the internet, is significantly lower. So therefore, less people are emitting more per head. But it still highlights why the tech industry desperately needs to take action on their impact. And if we are able to achieve the net zero commitments and what organisations have set, then there's got a lot of work to do to achieve those. So, how is the carbon footprint of the tech centre broken down? So, first of all, number one, and by far the most significant contributor, is these completely unseen data centres. Now, if anyone's seen these, either on the internet or in person, they are huge warehouses consisting of servers, so they're the bits that process all the data from the website and from the app. And then there's massive amounts of hard drive, SSDs, which actually stores the data from all those apps. And these data centres are on 24/7, no matter what. Now, if anyone's owned a desktop, like a gaming centre, like the big massive ones, when they're at full capacity or processing a game at full speed, the amount of heat that just that single device produces is quite significant. Now, if you can imagine a data centre with tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of servers and storage devices, you can imagine the amount of heat that's produced. And we need to reduce that heat in data centres because it can significantly reduce the performance of the device. It can also reduce the lifespan of the device as well. And of course, it can potentially become a fire risk. So what data centres have to do is deploy huge cooling systems to keep the temperature of these massive warehouses completely under control. But having, in my previous life, sold these types of infrastructures to banks and large organisations, there are multiple copies of the data centre doing exactly the same thing. So, and they're dotted around the country and they're dotted around the globe as well. And the main purpose for this is for backup and disaster recovery. So they're built and they're run and they're powered for situations that will probably never ever arise. And so this is understandable, because if you imagine your HSBC and you have a 1 minute outage, it could be quite catastrophic. So you need these replicas of data centres, but in order to keep operations going as normal, but obviously the amount of power that's consumed, powered by fossil fuels, that's the reality of it, are just there in the event of a highly unlikely outage. The second bit of it is the network infrastructure. So, which again, all of these network infrastructure devices, they're always on, whether they're in use or not. So we're in obviously a relatively big conference centre, the Congress Theatre. They've only got a handful of events happening on at any one time, but you can always guarantee that the network switches, the Wi-Fi routers, the access points, all of that kind of stuff, they're all left on in operation. So now the majority of these devices from Cisco and all the rest of it, they've got okay energy management systems, so they will power down if it's not recognising that they're on, but they are by no means perfect and it's still very early in the day. And also look at the mobile antennas. So we all rely upon them, we're all using mobile devices now, and they're the ones that constantly pump out data, constantly use energy, and again, they're on 24/7. And none of this we see or really think about unless we sort of really examine it. So then we come to the individual devices. So from smartphones to laptops to smart irons to smart washing machines, all that kind of stuff, our lives are sort of increasingly intertwined with all of these gadgets. So they don't compare in terms of the energy consumed by the data centres, but it's the environmental impact of the manufacturing process, which is and the waste disposal of these devices. So it's the extraction of the raw materials, the manufacturing processes, especially parts of Asia, and all the transportation from there to ourselves, which are contributing to the carbon emissions. And what isn't helping is that we're always being encouraged or forced to buy the latest model, sometimes as a result of a software update to run a certain app, or to make sure that it still runs efficiently and quickly. So what does this all mean on an individual level for all of us? So if we were to crudely divide the total amount of carbon dioxide, which is about 1.7 billion tonnes across the number of active internet users, then we've got roughly a figure of about 414 kilos per person, which is the average emissions emitted by an average person car use within the UK. But we're now entering that era where we're all going to have to start understanding our own individual impact on carbon emissions. So especially if you're a business owner or looking to start a business, or someone that wants to sell to companies with the sustainability goal, which kind of brings on to our next slide, which is how to calculate your own carbon footprint. Now, for the purposes of the event, I sort of focused it mainly on what individual businesses can do rather than us as individuals, but I've got a section on that afterwards. Now, the tools out there are pretty light and they're pretty crap, but there are some out there that may be of use to people. So, as we've sort of probably seen in the latest news, that government regulations are a bit ropey now, a bit light, and they're starting to roll back a lot of what they've set already. But however, as the current regulation stands, it's only large companies. So public limited companies, they must report on their energy use and their emissions every single year. So a large company is income of 36 million and 250 employees or more. So obviously it's completely unlikely at the moment, the latest news, that there's no change in reporting requirements for small businesses, but there are some benefits of doing it voluntarily. So any companies that want to sell to much larger firms than themselves, or at least have got the ambition to do so, as an example, we were invited to a tender for a Sussex charity, and they asked us to show all of our sustainability policies, our sustainability, the carbon emissions calculations, and also procurement processes for making sure that we procure our goods sustainably. So this would be the same for anyone else who's a startup that isn't by regulation have to do this, but if they want to start selling to companies that really value sustainability and their mission statement, then this is something that companies are actively encouraged to do. So, let's say you're committed, let's say you want to understand what your carbon footprint is. There's a fantastic initiative from the SME Climate Hub. So they provide a really good tool called the Business Carbon Calculator. And what it does, it enables you to log all of your activities on a regular basis. So it shows you what your emissions are across the board. It's completely free, and it's something that's been actively rolled out with the small business community. Most small businesses don't have data centres or a network infrastructure that they manage or control themselves. So they are typically dependent on the cloud providers such as Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and all the rest of it. But what you do have control of is your website, okay, and how your website is built. So there's two great tools out there, the Carbon Calculator and the Website Carbon Calculator. What you do, you plug your URL in there. It tells you how much carbon is produced through your website, and it tells you what recommended changes to make. And then you can work with a web developer to report how much carbon you'll produce over the 12 months and what you can do to make it even more efficient. That's a sales plug there. You can see that, very subtle one there. But crucially, what is the industry doing about it? You know, what are the big tech firms doing? So, the good news, should they go ahead with it and keep to their commitments, is that the current leading providers of the services, such as the logos you see on there, they've all committed for their data centres to be powered by renewable and sustainable energy by 2030. Now, Google has committed to run all of their sustainable data centres, to have sustainable data centres by 2030, and Microsoft and Amazon have said they'll be powered by 100% renewable energy by 2025. Some of the wording, especially from Amazon, is a little bit dubious, so we have to be a little bit careful about that because, for example, it says 90% of their current electricity can be attributed to renewable sources. If you can tell me what that means, that'd be great, but I have no idea. So there's still a long way to go, but we're moving in the sort of right direction. But I do want to give Crystal a shout out. I'm not being paid for it, so it is all legitimate, this one. But they're a locally based company in the southeast. They provide web hosting and data centres and all the rest of it. But they've sort of taken the lead in the sustainable space, and they've really pushed this sustainable tech message. So they don't have any renewable energy infrastructure at the moment. So they don't have solar panels or wind turbines or anything like that. And they get all of their electricity from the grid through ecotricity, people are familiar with that. But what they do is constantly report on the energy consumed, the carbon emissions, and then they're using carbon offset initiatives to reduce their overall impact. So if anyone is looking at website hosting, they're a good one to go for. Again, it's not perfect, it's not great, it's not the end solution, but it's great to see another local firm sort of take action on this. But what about manufacturers of devices, of servers, PCs, all the rest of it? So Apple in 2020, and they made this very clear, that the company became carbon neutral, but only for its global operations. So clearly all the stuff in China, India, all that kind of stuff, they're just completely ignoring that at the moment. But they have committed that we'll get net zero carbon footprint across its entire business in 2030. So we'll wait to see what happens with that. HP, they've committed that to be 2040, and they've said that all of their data centres and internal operations renewable energy by 2025. Intel fairly similar, but obviously with the amount of microchips used in pretty much everything, they have committed that they're going to have zero waste to landfill by 2030 as well. So it'll be interesting to see how they manufacture that, and if they include second-hand devices and how they encourage us consumers and businesses to recycle that. So at the moment, as you can imagine, there's massive lack of global or government regulation in this space to verify the green credentials or the claims done by the various vendors or suppliers. But there are a couple that are popping up. So Green Web Foundation, it's an independent organisation founded in the Netherlands. And what they do, they independently scrutinise these suppliers and vendors. And what they do is that they audit them and they certify their claims and what they're doing. So if you are looking at different tech providers for your tech solutions or whatever it may be, then they've got a really great directory on there to see that it's actually sustainably run and they do what they say they're going to do. They've also got a really cool tool as well, so we can plug in your URL on there and then it can tell you if it's actually run on proper, true green energy. So that's the consumer bit. What can we all do as individuals? Kept it fairly light because no one wants to be lectured on this stuff, but for business users, email is by far the largest tech sort of resource that has the largest impact on energy consumption and carbon emissions. Berners-Lee himself even calculated that the typical business user creates 135 kilos from sending emails every day, so that's the equivalent of driving 200 miles in a family car. But it should be so easy to cut this down. Now, my mum always told me it didn't cost anything to say please or thank yous, but it does if you're trying to save the planet. So if every adult in the UK sent one less thank you email, just thank you email, it could save about 16,000 tonnes of carbon per year. So this is the equivalent of taking about 300 diesel cars off the road. Something like that could be super simple. Also the same with sending attachments, so the amount of times that people receive the same cat photos sent around the office, either by being carbon copied or forwarded or whatever, the duplication of this data stored on these data servers and powered by fossil fuels and what have you, but it could just be easily resolved. Set up a Dropbox account, set up a OneDrive account, upload it and send a link, away you go. And lastly, I'm sure we've all got reams and reams of unwanted emails, newsletters, all the rest of it. Apparently the average user has about 3,000 unwanted emails, so again, contributes about 23 kilos of CO2. So just simply spend some time, when that irrelevant email comes through or newsletter, unsubscribe, and that will do, you can do a little bit there. Second biggest contributor is the refreshing of actually mobile phones. So either being forced to do it by updates, and we know from a major manufacturer that they're purposely downgrading the performance of a phone every time there's a major update. So just push back, rage against the machine, hold your current device for at least another iteration, although I can understand why people want to go down USB-C on the latest iPhone. But plus the Nokia 3310 is still the best thing out there, isn't it? So anyway, and phone charging overnight. Just simple something like that is one of the biggest energy consumption. Assuming we all have 8 hours sleep, plug it on before you go to bed, it's constantly powering that, even though it's got to 100%. So it only takes about an hour and a half now for newish phones to charge, so just do it when you wake up in the morning, it'll all be good. And the constant sending of smaller messages like a lol, a ha-ha, or emoji in a WhatsApp group or whatever, is more than what we need. If someone says laughs out loud, you know it's going to be funny, so that's all good. Plus, if you're not a fan of WhatsApp messages, then just ask your friends to send you text messages, as they're way more eco-friendly than doing it on a WhatsApp group, so you're not going to get bombarded from messages from there. So as businesses, individuals, we've got some actually fantastic initiatives. Again, it's not the perfect solution, but it's just that step forward. One called eco-logging. and 1% for the planet. So Ecolog is a subscription service. So once you've calculated your carbon footprint, if you're unable to reduce it or eliminate it from your business, then you can invest in a subscription service with Ecolog. You can say, right, I've produced X amount of tons of carbon, and then they will invest in initiatives to take that carbon out of the atmosphere. It's not great, it's just a starting point at the moment, but it's a great start to begin on your net zero journey. And likewise with 1% of the planet, this is an auditor and a certification that businesses can invest 1% of their turnover into green causes. That's eliminating carbon from the atmosphere, and you'll get a certification for doing so. And there are companies that are buying from companies like the B Corp, if anyone's familiar with that are taking part in this initiative. So why does it all matter? Well, this is obviously because collectively, like all of our choices we have has a massive effect, doesn't it? So if all you can take away from this is that you're going to use digital services that by companies that are committed to being net zero, or if you just simply send one less thank you email, then of course we're all going to have mitigate climate change for all and build a better sustainable future for everyone. And if anyone wants to get their website checked out, there's a QR code on the website there. Thank you very much.